Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 136. It's been an exciting time here at Diva headquarters. This podcast is not a big one by industry standards and has a respectable but modest-sized audience. So you can imagine Jen's response when she got the word a couple of weeks ago that she was going to get to interview one of her childhood heroes. 7-time Emmy Award-winning and 3-time Tony Award-nominated actor, director, screenwriter, author, and a whole bunch of other stuff, Alan Alda. That's some tall cotton, Jen. And now, with a slightly higher heart rate than normal, as well as a slightly bigger smile, is Jen with the interview.
So it is my absolute delight to welcome Alan Alda to the Communication Diva podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is very nice to be here. Thank you.
Oh, it's wonderful. Now, I wanted to start off by just asking you about the book. If I understood you, would I have this look on my face? I know that writing a book is a lot of work. I wrote one a couple of years ago, but I wanted to know what was the moment when, because you've written 2 books already, what was the moment when you said, I've got another one in me, I've got to write a book?
You're right. And about 10 years or so has gone by since the last time I wrote a book. And what made me want to do this was that I had been working for years now helping scientists communicate better. Actually, almost 25 years ago, I began when I was doing a television program on PBS called Scientific American Frontiers. And I must have interviewed, I tried to count once how many scientists I had interviewed, and I came up with about 700. So that's a lot of interviews. And the goal there was to try to help them get a description of their work out to the public who had not studied science and certainly hadn't studied the specialties that they were so acutely good at, and to help them communicate better. So helping people communicate really began way back then. And after the program was over, I thought, wouldn't it be good to be able to teach scientists how to do this, how to get this same open, free, personal connection with their audience that they had with me and through me to the television audience? Because I just wanted to understand how things worked. I didn't come in with a list of questions, and you don't come in with a list of questions either, right?
No, I don't.
And that makes it a conversation. And that conversational quality made something happen to the scientists themselves. They were more open and more personal. And I thought it would be great to be able to train them to be like that without somebody standing next to them drawing it out of them. And I realized that the way that I learned how to do that was studying improvisation and using other tools as an actor. That I've been an actor since I was a boy. So it took a while to get a university interested in doing this. Training in communicating science was not popular when I started trying to get this going 10 or 11 years ago. And
Right.
we find, it's got much more popular now. It's like a movement, and big science organizations are doing it. And we're collaborating with a lot of them. I helped start the Center for Communicating Science at Stony Brook University. Now, so all this is about science so far. But I began to realize as we trained scientists, and they were telling us things like, one senior scientist, a star in his field, said, I communicate better with everybody now, including my wife. And another scientist said, this training has saved my marriage.
Wow.
And it's kind of hard not to suddenly realize this is helpful to everybody. The principles of communication that we worked with and developed can really be used by people in families, parents and children, in schools, in business, lovers, husbands and wives. Everybody who has anything to do with another person can benefit from better communication.
I heartily agree.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's amazing. Well, you do communication on a regular basis, so I would expect you to be lit up by that same fire.
Yeah. I know reading your book, I just kept turning the pages and saying, yes! And I especially loved when you talked about curiosity. And I wonder if that was you said you wanted to know how things worked. And so where did the teacher in you emerge?
I don't know, because I think, you know what I think it is? And it may be an especially good way of trying to teach, which is, if I'm excited by something, I want another person to be excited too. I want to share the pleasure with other people. I don't want to tell them things they don't want to know or don't need to know. I want to tell them things that delight them and make them go, wow, that's amazing. Because that's fun. That's a fun experience. So for me, it's the deepest and best form of entertainment. Probably the same reason that I went on the stage was the reason that I wanted to teach. Now that you mention it, I never thought of it that way.
One of the things I was wondering about when you talked about relating and deepening, and that you used improv. How did you come up with the idea of teaching people improv to become better communicators?
Well, it's from my own personal experience. Improvisation, first of all, improvisation training was the only training I ever had as an actor. And if you're going to be self-taught, but you're going to do one thing that would make you a better actor, I would suggest improvisation. And everybody I know who has studied improv has said what I found to be true about me, which is that it makes you not only a better actor, it changes your life. You listen better. You're more able to deal with things on the fly. Going to a difficult meeting, I don't worry how I'm going to do. I don't think I must say this and I must say that. I think I'll see what happens. I'll take it from them. Because improvisation, the way we teach it, and in its purest form, is not comedy improvisation, where the point is to get laughs from an audience. The essence of this kind of improvisation is to make contact with the other person. And when you make contact, you have a channel between you that's open, and you're responding to them. You're not pouring things into their head. It's not a broadcast model of communication. To me, a broadcast model of communication is where you sit quietly while I tell you stuff, and I expect you to understand it and to remember it and to live by it. And all I've done is spray it at you. I haven't found out what you really care about. Am I talking to you about something you care about? I haven't figured out whether or not you're understanding me, and if you have any reason to remember it. So, I mean, that's a whole other way of looking at communication from the way many people think of it. I think our first notion about communication tends to be, what's the best message I can formulate? And that will work with whoever I'm talking to, whatever audience I have. And then you start to realize when you do this work that they're not so much an audience as a communication partner. And if you don't partner up with them and get back from them what their response is to you, you're missing, I think, more than half of the experience.
You said in your book that that listening is more than just being quiet while the other person finishes talking.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I think a lot of us have come to that conclusion that it's not really listening. If I'm just waiting for you to finish the sentence you're in now so I can start my paragraph. And the problem with doing that is you wind up with two dueling monologues.
Yes.
Neither one of you is listening to the other, and you're just having fun expelling air. Whereas if I'm really listening to you and I let myself be altered by what you say to me and respond to it, let it sink in and give you the respect of thinking, well, maybe there's something in that. Let me see what I can find. What is there in me that responds to that in a positive way? And then all of a sudden we're trading ideas and we're getting somewhere together, and neither one of us is insisting on what we came in with. And I think that's an ideal form of communication. It takes some trouble to get there.
As with any good practice, I wonder, it builds confidence as well. It must build confidence when you're talking about going into a meeting and just wondering what's going to happen next and responding to that. That takes a certain amount of inner confidence.
Yeah, you can go into a meeting not knowing what's going to happen, and you can be saying to yourself all the way down the hall, all the way as you enter through the door, oh God, I hope this goes okay.
Kind of like how I was talking to myself this morning.
But it doesn't have to be like that. If you've been through improv enough, or experience, even everyday experiences that you can handle like an improv, you have the experience you can call back on. You can say, I can handle this. I've done it before. This will be fun. I'm going to see what they toss at me, and I'll see if I can toss it back to them. And then you have a game of catch. You have a game of ping pong. You don't have a game of archery where you're shooting arrows at them. And that's a big difference. It's much more fun. I mean, I know what the experience is like. I know what it's like to be in a meeting where I'm trying to sell somebody an idea or a story or something like that. And I launch into it, and I think, I hope this is going well. I wonder if they're liking it. And they were just sitting and waiting until I'm done. It can be excruciating. But if you're not looking at their face and getting clues about how they're getting it, you can stop and ask them questions. I had a wonderful guy sell me something once. He wanted me to be on a game show. This was about 30 or 40 years ago. And he had invented a new game show. So he says, now this is the way the game works. I don't know, are you interested in hearing this, he said. I said, yeah. He said, well, okay, so it starts like this. And he tells me the first part of the idea. And he says, I don't know, does that interest you at all? He kept drawing me in. He kept making me say, yeah, I want to hear more. And I did want to hear more. He was almost playing hard to get. It was amazing. But he did it in such an open, easy way that I found it charming. It didn't feel manipulative at all. It was sweet how he did it. And he had my complete attention the whole time because he was connected to me. He didn't do it in a formulaic way. You know, you could do that same thing. If somebody takes this as a tip and says, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to sell it this way. I say, I got a car for you. It's a great car. Are you interested in hearing more? And the guy says, no. I mean, it's got to be integrated into a relationship with the other person.
Exactly. So when this guy was selling you whatever it was, were you aware of what he was doing?
Yeah, I was with my manager at the time, and the two of us were smiling because we could see what he was doing. My manager had himself been a terrific salesman, and he said, boy, this guy is good, you know, because he was working the relationship. He wasn't just following a formula he wasn't following the formula of this trick, nor was he following the formula of the explanation of the show. He didn't have one way to say it. He was finding out where I was, and he was altering it to suit me. That's alive. If it's not living, it's not going to happen, I don't think. And I think you're right. I think this kind of approach really does build confidence. And that really turns out to be important because one of the things I did to help raise money for the Alda Center for Communicating Science that I helped start at Stony Brook University, which is a nonprofit organization. It's a university center. In order to help raise money for them, I started a separate company that's a profit-making company that will do training in corporations in leadership and women in business, media training. And that's for profit, but all the profits will go to the Center for Communicating Science. And our first workshop is a workshop for women in business. And one of the things that I really was surprised to hear, I'm interested to know if you're surprised by this, because you talk about this subject all the time. At our first, I think it was our second or third pilot for the Women in Business workshop, we were asking what they most were interested, what they most needed from the workshop, and 100% of them said more confidence.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
That's true. I'm launching an interview skills course online on Monday, and there's a section in it called the Circle of Excellence, and the whole point of that is to help build your inner confidence, because as far as that goes, I've heard over and over and over again that people, lack, they can exude confidence that isn't real, and they want to know how to build that inner confidence. They don't want to fake it till they make it. They want to become it and become more confident. And that seems to be a running theme in the work that I do. People want to know, the podcast episodes that talk about that seem to resonate more with people. Like, how do I get this, and how do I have this thing called confidence? So I totally understand that.
Yeah, and I understand the idea of wanting to possess it, to be it, rather than to fake it, because I never found I was able to fake confidence. If I didn't have it, the more I told myself I was confident, the less I believed it. And I mean, at a certain point, I find I'm honest with myself, and I think most people are. They say, yeah, it's like over 100 years ago, that process began. I forget the person, you may remember this, the person who started the idea that every day you look in the mirror and say, every day in every way I'm getting better and better.
Right. I don't remember who, but I remember that saying, yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I think, over 100 years ago. And like a lot of people, probably like millions of people, I tried that. And I would say, every day in every way I'm getting better and better. And then I'd say, oh, yeah?
But
I don't think so.
So much for the yes and.
Well, yes and can work, but telling yourself something that you don't believe is hard to make work. But so what do you find, this is interesting, what do you find helps the person believe they are in fact improving in confidence?
I think having the skills, having some practice, and having experienced using the skills. So I find in teaching, because I taught college for 23 years in healthcare, and I was teaching unit clerks, which the only way I used to be able to describe that were, basically Radar O'Reilly, until the students got too young to know who that was. And I said, what? So basically the unit clerk was the person that communicated with doctors and nurses and was the go-between, communicating what needed to be done. And it's a scary job, because you have to talk to the big scary doctors. And only by actually going to the clinical setting for several weeks and doing, setting a goal and accomplishing it, and then setting another goal and accomplishing it, did they gain the confidence to be able to walk up and interrupt somebody when they needed to ask a question, or, answer the phone with confidence. So it was practice, which is why the idea of practicing improv is so fascinating to me, because it's actually doing rather than just gathering knowledge, because I don't think just gathering the knowledge works.
I agree. That's why I have an antipathy toward tips. I know a lot of people like tips, and usually people will end the conversation with me and say, what are the 3 things that the people listening or the people reading this interview need to know. And I get very sad when I hear that question, because I can tell you tips till it gets dark, but that doesn't mean that it's going to have an effect on you. To me, to remember a tip is a little like saying I'm getting better every day in every way. I think you have to go through an experience, and the experience that, for instance, in the Women in Business workshop that we're doing, the experience, first of all, is the experience of these improv exercises that are designed to put you in touch with the other person. You get comfortable with another person. You get comfortable reading their body language, reading their frame of mind, so that you actually can make a pretty good estimate of what's going on in their head. You can read their minds to some extent. I mean, not in a woo-woo way.
Not in a creepy way.
Yeah, right. But you can get a good estimate of where they are emotionally and intellectually. And as a result of that, you can speak from inside you to inside them. The tone of voice changes, your own body language changes. We hear about lean in. It becomes more comfortable to lean in. You do it automatically. Your face expresses comfort and a welcome to the other person. All of this can happen automatically. And once we do those preliminary exercises, then we get into role playing, where she's asking her boss for a raise, or she wants more people on her team, which is, an expenditure that she's got to sell the idea for. And by the same token, the boss on the other side, she has to figure out how to handle this request so that she doesn't antagonize her worker, but inspires her to do even better work and more work. And if she hasn't got the resources, to get by on the resources she has and work with her and figure out a way to do it. In other words, to both somebody in middle management and somebody even above them can learn something from this role-playing experience, which is enabled by the improv that goes before it. And then sometimes, very often, we stop the role-playing in order to go back to a relevant, important improv exercise that would make the role-playing go better, where they're not really making connection. And you can help them get back into a connection. And what's interesting about this is really interesting. I've seen people talk to their boss in this role-playing situation, trying to make a good case for what they want, and they're getting nowhere for 5 minutes. We go back to an improv exercise that puts them in touch with the other person in a deeper way, and within 30 seconds, they get what they want. The person playing the boss says, well, I really don't have an answer for that. You got it. Now, that's not going to happen 100% of the time, but I've seen it happen in the role-playing situations, which means to me that if you give people that experience over and over again, they're bound to walk out, I think, with a certain amount of confidence so that they can be able to say, I did it before, I can do it again.
And what happens if the person that's in the improv class is having this conversation in a workplace where the people have not been to the same improv class? Do they still get results?
I think that there's every chance they can, because, obviously, if everybody has taken this workshop, then everybody is automatically going to do better. In fact, one of the things we do, because we want to make the improv class last beyond the day they spend at it, the few hours they spend at it, we hope that they'll leave. We try to organize it so each person will leave having identified another person in the workshop that they'll keep in touch with and keep this alive between them. And when one of them has a difficult conversation coming up, she can call the other one up and say, you want to play this out with me? Let me rehearse this with you. Let me just experiment with you and get a feel for it. But when she goes into the meeting and the boss, let's say, or the employee does not have the same training, what you have, if you've had the training, is you have the tools to be able to read the other person. You can use your sense of empathy to know what they're going through And that empathy is a great tool. I have a feeling it may be an indispensable tool to effective communication, because it gives you a look inside them. And if they're not doing the same thing, if they don't naturally have this or haven't been trained in it, you have a better tool than they have. And you can help get your point absorbed by them. The ideal thing is that you're both doing it. But if you're working with a boss who's difficult, you need some tools, because the boss has the greatest tool of all, which is you're fired.
Exactly.
So you got to have some tools.
So what happens if a person who's listening to this wants to get some of these tools and take some of this training, but they're not anywhere near Stony Brook University? What can they do to learn?
Yeah, the business training is not done at Stony Brook. That's all science and medical training, and it's mostly not done at Stony Brook either. That's all done at hospitals, hundreds of hospitals around the country, hundreds of universities around the country and abroad. We're in several other countries. The business training is done by the Alda Communication Training Company. The acronym is ACT. ACT. You got to get excited and say ACT. Alda Communication Training. You can look it up and see if we're having a workshop that at a time that works.
Because it sounds like it's very effective. You had some fabulous results.
Yeah, we get wonderful testimonials from people, very heartfelt, where, you know what, one that really interested me, we were doing a focus group in preparation for the workshops for women in business. And we were talking about the common problem that women have when they're at a conference table and they're interrupted by the guys at the table. And most of the people in the room said, "Oh, God, yeah, I know exactly what this is, and we've got to do something about this." One woman who had been in business a long time, she was about 70 years old, had a lot of experience, was an executive high up in her company, told me a week later that she left our meeting, went to a meeting in her company, and realized she was being interrupted. She realized it for the first time. She had gotten so accustomed to it that it had become part of her life. And she didn't realize this was something she didn't want to happen anymore. And she said, "Hey, I'm talking, don't interrupt me."
That's kind of sad.
It is. But, it doesn't say something about her, except that she learned to survive in a toxic situation. But what it says is the culture is so embedded by these practices that in order to survive, sometimes you have to just accept it, or people feel they have to just accept it. And a workshop like ours says, maybe not. Maybe you can develop tools where you see it happening in its nascent forms. You see the embryonic arrival of this talking down to you, explaining things to you, interrupting just slightly, and then the next time it's putting a hand on your arm to stop you from speaking. And all of a sudden there's no self-expression. And if you can nip it in the bud because you're aware of it and you have tools for how to handle it, seems to me that that really can make a big difference.
So the work that you're doing that started with wanting to know how things work, and then with helping scientists explain better how they do the work that they do, you've moved to doctors and teachers, and now it sounds like you're reaching untold numbers of people. This is really, really important work.
Well, I think I stumbled into something step by step. When I was an actor, I didn't know I'd be working with scientists, and when I was working with scientists, I didn't know I'd be working with doctors, and then I didn't know I'd be writing a book for everybody, in every field, every walk of life, every kind of relationship. So I didn't decide to go there. The whole thing was an improvisation. I just found myself going where I felt I could be helpful, and where I was having fun. I really had fun doing the science show. The only reason I did it was to have fun and to learn. So I'm having fun doing this too. It's just wonderful to see somebody light up with an ability to have more confidence, to be able to handle something that they couldn't handle before. It feels great.
And you know, that delight and that lighting up just came right off the page when I was reading that book. I tell you that.
Well, that's nice. Thank you. I love writing. It's a terrific, and it was a wonderful experience to me to try to live by what I was preaching while I was writing, to be as clear as I could, to tell stories, to be personal with the reader. And when I started out, I didn't do that. You know, years ago as a writer, I remember talks I had written or articles I had written where I tried to do the best I could, but I wasn't nearly as connected to the reader as I think I am now.
Mm. Is there another book in you?
I have no idea. I don't plan ahead that much. You never know where my interest will lead me. I'll find I'll probably be working with monkeys in Australia or something. I don't know if do they even have monkeys there? I don't know. I'll discover one.
That'll be great. I have to tell you a quick story before we wrap up, and that's that when I was 12 years old, you're the only person I ever wrote fan mail to, and I was 12 years old, and I wrote you a great big long handwritten letter on that lined paper. about your acting and how brilliant I thought it was, and I was just fell over when I got an envelope back that had a photograph, and I was just a little bit disappointed that it was one of those, you know, pre-copied computer signed photographs, but that photograph was on my wall for years.
Oh, did I actually answer your letter, or did I just send you the picture?
No, it was just the picture, but it was I was just delighted, and who knew that, you know, 38 years later I'd be.
Well, thank you for, you know, it's funny, every once in a while I hear a story like that, especially when we're on the air, and I'm wondering, how's this going to end? Did I send back a snarky letter, or was it okay?
No, but this has just been delightful to be able to talk to you. And I wonder, sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, I'm just saying thank you.
No, I wonder where people can learn more about you, find out more, and your book is everywhere, I assume?
Yeah, the book is everywhere, and it's called If I Understood You, Would I Have This Look on My Face? And I guess you can find out more about me by Googling just Alan Alda Communication, and it'll come up. The Center for Communicating Science will come up. The Alda Communication Training Company will come up. And I'm grateful to you for helping me spread the word. And you sound like you're doing great work too, so congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's a ton of fun, and like you say, there's nothing better than watching somebody gain that confidence and succeed in their own field.
Well, I agree.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you so much, Jen. Bye-bye.
And so that was Alan Alda, award-winning actor, founder of the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science, and author of the new book, If I Understood You, Would I Have This Look on My Face? I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I know I could have continued on for a lot longer, and actually when the microphone was switched off, the recording was stopped, we did talk for a little bit more after that. He's a very busy man from the sounds of it, so I was grateful to have a little bit of his time this morning to be able to share with you his excitement and his deep desire to help people relate to each other and to communicate in more effective ways. I will have a more complete bio of Alan Alda and all of the links to his website and his organizations and his social media links, and also links to where you can buy the new book over at the show notes at communicationdiva.com/136. That's communicationdiva.com/136. If you've been a Communication Diva listener for a bit now, you'll know that July 31st is a big day. Now, besides it being my 50th birthday this year, it is also the launch date of our brand new online course called How to Ace a Job Interview When You Haven't Interviewed in a Long Time. This course is designed to quickly get you well prepared for whatever kind of job interview you'll be invited to. The course gives you worksheets, videos, and exercises to help you practice and to help you feel less nervous. And by the end of the course, which takes approximately 3 hours to complete, but that depends on you, it helps you to be very much ready to ace your job interview. Now, the course is only open for registration from July 31st until August 7th, 2017. And you can find out more. You can watch some of the first few videos. You can see the curriculum outline, and you can see what others who have taken the course in my beta launch have to say about it. You can do all of that over at courses.communicationdiva.com. That's courses.communicationdiva.com. So remember that you can take the course for as long as you want, but you can only register for it during the week of the 31st, July 31st to August 7th, and then it will be closed until October. If there is a job interview in your near future, or if you want to give this course away to someone you love as a gift, then do check it out. Thanks, and that's it for this week. Until next time, I'm Jen Swanson. I'm thanking you so much for listening to the Communication Diva podcast.